play, everyone. It's called Pearly. It's spelled P-U-R-L-E-Y. So now, for my first guest, he's coming from the West Coast by way of Chicago. I would like to introduce Mighty Mo Rodgers. What's happening, sir?
Hey, man, how you doing? I'm hanging in there.
I'm well, sir. It's an honor to speak with you.
Well, I'm glad to be on your show, man. You got some great stuff, and I think it's called Pearly Victorious, isn't the show or something that play?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a great play. Great play.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And thank you and I'm thanking you for confirming that because some people might say, well, this guy, he's just supersizing this performance, but no, their performance was great, and it actually, if I'm not mistaken, premiered in '63, if I'm not mistaken, and that was the remake cast,
I think
right?
You're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, Henderson was in it. A bunch of people. It was a great play, and hoping he revive it.
Absolutely. So now let's get to you and your journey, sir. Okay, because you have a long history of blues and being the face of our traditional music, or what I like to call tribal music. How about we start with your earlier days and what was your inspiration? What was your upbringing like? Where was the connection like for music and blues and rhythm and blues?
Yeah, I grew up in the '60s and early '50s, listening to radio, rock and roll, rhythm, blues, and I used to hear mostly. Wasn't much blues in my home, but I would sneak out and go to the small farms, the juke joints in Gary, Indiana, and the small farms, and hear all these guys, Jimmy Reed, Albert King. I couldn't play it, but I was in awe of all these blues guys, and I was like 16 years old, people sneaking in these places. Me and Willie be my best friend, who I wrote a song on my first album about, and that's my first exposure when I listened to these guys. They were just incredible, and I couldn't play it then. I was a kid, actually raised in a middle-class home. My father had money, we had a big house, and he was doing good. He had a nightclub, and so I went to see this blues, and then later I played in blues bands or R&B bands actually in college and stuff like that, and getting my feet wet. But blues, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee brought me back to blues. I produced them in the '70s, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee, and they blew me up in terms of what blues is.
Wow.
I've been in it ever since.
Well, there was a lot of things I wanted to touch on. What you just said from your father owning a nightclub and Gary, Indiana juke joints, because that made me want to ask you if Joe Jackson was playing the blues in those juke joints.
Yeah, I knew Joe real well.
Oh, wow, okay. Well, we'll come back to that. I want to talk about this album that you produced for Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee. How did this come about? That's in the quote-unquote enthusiast blues world, because you and I know our music is our music, but the blues enthusiast, that is godlike.
Well, for me it was too. I must confess, I was playing rhythm and blues then, and I got the project. I was working as an independent producer. And it was on A&M Records. We picked the record up. It was produced independently, but Sonny Terry and Brownie was so respected, and A&M Records was huge with Joe Cocker and all these big bands they had as a pop record, big label. And they picked it up because they respected Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee. When I saw them at the Ash Grove and the Folk House, they just blew me, especially Sonny Terry. And right. So I got the project and I reinvented it. And I added people. I added people like Woody Guthrie's son, Arlo Guthrie. I got him to play on the record, and because they played with Woody Guthrie as a trio years ago.
Absolutely.
And I got Sugarcane Harris to play violin, and I got Arlo the Englishman to play some guitar on it. A lot of stars. Bob Dylan wanted to be on it, but he was out of town. Not because I was such a great producer, because they respected Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee so much. So it was the kudos for me, and I didn't know he would come back to haunt me in a good way wherever I go in Canada. And these guys come, man, you produced Sonny Terry and this. And I wrote 3 songs for him on the record, and I'm honored to have had that project because Sonny and Terry and Brownie were the real deal.
Yes, they were, sir. Yes, they were. How humbling is that? Your statement that everybody celebrates the album and was celebrating it at the time of it being created, and for you to say, but it wasn't for me, it was for the respect they had for Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee. That must have been extremely a humbling moment and an eye-opening moment in regards to how much of an impact our traditional music has on American music as a whole.
You're quite right, and it saddens me. A lot of young blacks don't understand that, and I toured the world. I just got back from Switzerland, and of course in Europe they love our roots, our music, and they know more about me than most blues black artists over here. And so that kind of saddens me. And my goal is to bring the roots music, the tribal music, blues, back to the black community, because we are, as Baraka says, we are the blues people.
That's right. That's right. Now, let's talk about that, because that's actually one of the main focuses, or I should say main reasons that this entire platform launched, was the fact that there seems to be there is a disconnect between this generation and the history of our traditional music. So I guess I want to ask you, the first question I would like to ask you, why do you think this disconnect happened? Why do you think young adults, some older adults, and definitely younger, teens and early 20s, have not identified that this is our music?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. And I wrote about it. I've lectured at the university. I'm writing a book on it, in that blues music for a lot of young people represents bad times and hard times. And most of these blues guys, as you know, died with no money, broke.
Absolutely.
On unmarked graves. So young people say, well, why should I listen to this music where these people didn't make any money off of it? They love now hip-hop with the bling-bling and all that stuff, and they show the Rolls Royce and cars they're driving in and all that stuff. But what they don't understand is if it wasn't for blues, there wouldn't be no hip-hop.
Exactly.
And that's just a cold fact. And Chuck D says it, in Public Enemy. A lot of people say it, if it wasn't for blues, would be no hip. Even great Stevie Wonder, hip-hop comes from blues. But they don't see the connection because they see downtrodden, hard times and stuff. And my goal is to make them understand that these are your ancestors. You grew up on it. We come from this. Blues, I have a hard time saying it because blues come from some tough, hard, dark times. Slavery, lynchings, chain gangs, rapes, and all that stuff. Wasn't for that, would be no blues. A lot of people don't want to be reminded of that. And I do understand, but these are the hardcore facts. And to not know that, it's like Jewish people never forget the Holocaust. Well, exactly. We came out of what I call a Holocaust, Hell. And we must never forget that we came out of a Holocaust, and that is our legacy. But we rose above it. Blues took that which was most dysfunctional, most disfigured, and transfigured it into something beautiful, like a lotus flower. It took that which was disfigured and made it transfigured. And you cannot forget that. This is where it comes from. This is what we are, and we should remember it like Jews remember the Day of Passage. All the tragic holidays. Remember, the Jewish holidays come from tragedies.
That's right.
And we must never forget that too. That our legacy, blues. If it wasn't for blues, it would be no American music.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for blues, there'd be no Elvis Presley, who loved the blues, by the way. If it wasn't for blues, there'd be no Beatles, no Rolling Stones, no Michael Jackson, no nothing. And it all comes from blues. And blues come from something about 5 dozen poor folks in the South who were disenfranchised, couldn't read and couldn't write. Even the middle-class blacks and churchgoers despised him. And yet this music, this profound music, the only folk music that's gone around the world. You go to any place, Moscow, London, Paris, Rome, you have blues or blues children, rhythm and blues, rock and roll. It all comes from blues. That's America. That's a profound miracle, not by chance. And I call blues the holy howl. HOLYHOWS, the holy howl. It's our pre-language cry of what we went through, our Holocaust. But we survived. We made it. And most of the kids who do the damage to each other, the killing each other, they don't know their history. It's a glorious history. You know, it's a beautiful struggle, and we made it from the slave house to the White House.
Imagine that.
You know, from
Imagine
the slave
that.
house to the White House.
That's tough, and it's true. Now, you touched on something that's very important. White people don't want to discuss, not all, but a good portion of them don't want to discuss the culture of the blues in regards to the treatment of the people that spawn the music. They just want to talk about the music. Not all. Let me be clear, not all white folk. But a good portion of them, they don't want to discuss it. They just, why can't we just talk about the music? Why can't we just play the music? You know, I never had no slaves. Music has no color. But in the same regard, black folk don't want to discuss it either because of the same reason. This is what I'm getting from you.
Right, you're right. Okay. And I understand. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, sir.
You know, and I understand why whites don't want to do it. It's hard. It's dark. They didn't go through it. They don't understand why the importance of it. But that's like, again, trying to tell Jewish people don't discuss the Holocaust. That's an insult to tell Jews not to do that. That's an insult to tell us not to discuss our Holocaust. But the sad thing is that I'm starting a school in the heart of Compton it's going to be called the Blues People School of Blues. And I'm in it. And one of the requirements is that they must read. They must read what blues is about. You know, because there are people like Stevie Ray Vaughan who loved the blues and was a great representation of a white person loving the blues and singing the blues. And Stevie Ray knew this. The blues is alive. You understand that the blues muse is alive. It's real. It's not some fantasy. And what it is, I'm trying to say, Lamont, if you believe it, it will give you some of its gifts. Stevie Ray Vaughan got some of those gifts because he loved it and he was humble to it and he rose to the occasion. I'm only missing his name to say that there are people out there who do understand this because it's our legacy. It's what we do, and we still do it best. We're getting dissed and getting dogged in a lot of places I can't play in America because I'm too controversial, because I talk about political, social issues. And they say, oh, Mighty Mo's music is great, but he talks about commentaries. My first record, Blues My Willie, the second song was Took Away the Drum, and the third song was Tuskegee Blues, about Tuskegee experiments down in Alabama, you know. And I got this for that, but still, these are true things. You know, these are true things that we should feel and do and know. But I understand why black kids and young people don't do it. But the killings would stop, the hatred would stop, the self-hate would stop if you know your roots. Like Malcolm X says, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. You know, and we're repeating it over and over again. Repeating it over and over again because we don't know our roots. You know, we are the blues, and our legacy is that without our music, without the children of the music, rock and roll, rhythm, blues, and hip hop and heavy metal, there would be no American music. That's the whole thing. No Frank Sinatra, no Tony Bennett, no Nat King Cole on the jazz side, no Louis Armstrong. All this great music comes from us. That's a fact.
Absolutely.
You know,
it is a fact. Let's talk about that because, I'll put it this way. Because you mentioned Malcolm X, right? The Honorable Malcolm X, right? And Farrakhan also inspired this movement, at least on my end, because just one day I heard an old speech from his that I heard many times, but it didn't move me this way. He said, they took our history away. That whole entire speech, we were robbed of our history, robbed of this, robbed of that. And then it dawned on me, no, we wasn't. Because even though we had a history prior to coming to this country, and this land, and some of us was already on this land, the blues, slave songs, slave seculars, black spirituals, that is our history on this land. So with that being said, my question to you is, why do you think, or do you think, either one, if you do think, why, if you don't, do you think that the older generations of the so-called African Americans did not pass this down? Because you mentioned the quote-unquote Jewish people and how they do not allow these things to be forgotten, and they pass their story down. How come we're not passing these stories down when that's really part of our heritage to pass it down?
Right. And that's a good question, because people oftentimes, I call them nouveau riche Negroes. The nouveau riche. The nouveau rich, the new money people, oftentimes they buy the house, they move out of the hood, they move into the mostly the upper class bourgeois hood, which is mostly white, and they're successful. Integration has allowed black people, as Du Bois said, the talented tenth, that he thought would save us, to move out and to move up. So the hood was a neighborhood, and it became a hood when we disenfranchised ourselves. I'm old enough to remember when the doctor was across the street, my dentist was down the street, the lawyer was up the street, my father had his we all were together because of segregation. That's the truth. Integration did destroy some things. It allowed the upper class to move out, the so-called talented tenth that Du Bois said would save and help the community. They never returned. They never returned with the sophistication, with the education, with their know-all, no knowledge to help the community. And that's what happened in Chicago and Detroit, all the cities. The upper class moved out. That's when it became a hood. It used to be a neighborhood where we all lived together. So I don't blame they call it white flight. There was a black flight that would happen, and they took what they had, and so they didn't want to teach their kids this. Look, we're safe. We got a big home here now. We're safe. I don't hear nothing about that hard time blues stuff, all that juke joint stuff like that, And one of my heroes is August Wilson, the great playwright.
Absolutely.
And he wrote me back, and I sent him my first record, Wailin, and we talked for a minute. He told me some things, and I got his picture. I got his letter on the wall. I wrote him, and the one he wrote back before he passed away, where he said everything we do, all of our moves, our actions, the Michael Jordan dunk, all of our stuff comes from a legacy of our blues as the blues people. And as a writer, he wrote through blues. He said everything I wrote in my plays comes from blues. This is August Wilson.
All his plays was the blues.
That's right. He loved the blues, and the only black playwright got a theater on the so-called Great White Way. August Wilson is right. I've seen most of his plays, and they're about us. And he speaks the vernacular tongue. You see, that's another problem. Speaking blues means sounding black, not being ashamed that you speak Ebonics. Blues is Ebonics.
Yes, it is.
It is Ebonics. And to understand that is not to be ashamed. There's no such thing as a good language, a bad language. It's different languages. When you go make money, you speak you speak the King's English when you do that. We all are bilingual and trilingual. There's nothing wrong with that. I went to school. Hell, I got a degree in philosophy. I don't talk about it, don't tell it, but I do. I don't go and talk about epistemology or existentialism in the white world just to show off. But yet I can speak the King's English if I have to. But I speak blues because I'm proud of being black, and that's what I am, will be, and will die. So that's what people get away from oftentimes, ashamed of he's sounding black or this. I don't mean the hip-hop type with the vulgarity. I'm not because,
right.
Again, that's controlled by corporate America today. People understand that hip-hop is controlled by corporate America. They let you say what they want you to say.
Rather than we're in the 80s and early 90s, it was our voice.
Exactly. It was our voice when it first started. The Message, the great song, The Message. I did a lecture with him. When he did that song, we had some, but it became a commodity. It became a commodity for Wall Street, and it's $1 billion business. I saw Miss America TV show, part of it once, and they were dancing, more moving to hip hop, boom, chicka, punk. They were all that stuff. I go to Europe, they singing hip hop in French. They're singing in Japanese. I say, wow, this is our again. We invent it, and then we give it away. We invent it,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because I have a big issue with that as well. A friend of mine and fellow musician, Professor Harp, he terms it, we've been sold a bill of a bill of goods, meaning we got hoodwinked. Now,
right.
Are we necessarily giving it away, or is it because it's so ingrained in our tradition and heritage as everyday life, we don't think to package it and and sell it, and those on the outside come in and package it and sell it, and we just don't reap the benefits.
Well, the great Quincy Jones had a meeting in Beverly Hills 20 years ago with Kumo, I forget his name.
Kumo D.
About Kumo D and about 10 other hip hoppers who were hot. And he started the magazine The Source. And he said at this meeting that we're not going to lose like we lost rock and roll. That's why you got P. Diddy and all these black moguls, Russell Simmons, because they became entrepreneurs. My hat's off to them. The hip hoppers took the torch, what Quincy Jones said, don't lose it. And now they're getting the financial riches because they do control many of the labels, or what's his name, Jay-Z, and out here, Dr. Dre, who sold some earphones for $500 million, and he just bought a home in Beverly Hills for $40 million. So we're making good, but the problem is, again, these entrepreneur black people who now have packages, they still have to go by the rules of Wall Street. Michael Jackson's record got censored because he used a derogatory Jewish word on it, if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
And they took the record off. Now, I'm not judging. All I'm saying is that I understand the way Jews would feel. I would want to pull it too. But the bottom line is that corporate America controls hip-hop today. You have underground people come out, and so, again, it's been corporatized. So all these...
Well, hold on. I have to intercede because this is the issue I'm having, and this is what allows me to believe that someone else has control of our cultured music, because I can give you several instances where in a hip-hop song, something that was not even derogatory, but it was a name of a Jewish person, and it was pulled or blacked out, but the word niggas and bitch, excuse my language, is all over the music, to the point where non-black people who sing these songs are saying these words.
Exactly. I was driving down the street and this young white guys and they were singing this rap song, and they were doing the Kanye West song. She's just the one about she's just a rich person looking for. Remember that song? Yeah, well, they were singing it. They looked at me and they were young, and the guy got embarrassed. But the point is, though, yes, we're allowed to denigrate our own selves. We're allowed to call the women the B word and all that stuff because that can be sold in packets, and it is. And until we wake up to do this. You remember when Oprah had that show when that comedian went crazy out here and he called this group of people the N-word and said they should be slaves. I don't know if you remember. He was on Seinfeld.
I do remember. The guy who played Kramer.
Right. But Oprah had a whole show about it. Now, I'm a good friend of Paul Mooney. I've been knowing Paul for 40 years. I met Richard Pryor through him. Richard Pryor was the first person to make the N-word okay when his album was called That Nigga's Crazy.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And later he went to Africa, and he said he didn't want to say it. He saw none of that. He came back and he said he was sorry. But by
that's right. He sure did.
He sure did. Said he's sorry. By that time, Pandora's box had been opened. Since then, Latinos call each other that. I hear Filipinos call each other that. I hear white people sometimes call each other that. The point is, it's become a generic word. Sadly. So what we have to do is we have to unsell this word and buy it back by freeing us from this word, because it is holding us down. We use it so freely. We do invent the culture, and we do let it get away from it for one simple reason. You see, blues, it all comes from blues, but you can't buy blues. You can't buy blues, Lamont. You can only buy the blues. By that I mean blues is an existential coming from us. So every time blues becomes corporate, like a snake shedding its skin, blues reinvents itself. Hip-hop is the latest reinvention. I give a prophecy in about 5 to 10 years, it's going to be something new coming along. Because blues has been commodified in hip-hop. Something new will come along from the ghetto, from the hood. There will be just as revolutionary as hip-hop is. Just like rock and roll was revolution. Just like rhythm blues was revolution. It will come from us, because blues you can't buy. And it has to reinvent itself to outrun what I call the slave catcher of commodification. So now hip-hop is the latest commodity to be sold and bought. as a slave, like we were. So blues will come again, reinvent itself like it did with hip hop when it was revolutionary 20 years ago, and it will be something else totally reinvent itself. You know, and that's what happens because it will always commodify our music and turn it into a thing because we were things. We were property. And blues and they make a property out of it. But blues, you can't buy blues. It's an existential. It comes from us, our being, our very soul. We are the blues people, and it'll come again.
Absolutely. Now you say something very, very prolific, and Corey Harris made mention to a similar point when I had the honor to interview him. One of the reasons why the so-called African American does not have a monopoly on the blues or our musical or cultured commodity is because what you said, whatever we invented, it was given over to them to make money, and it kind of gave us the illusion of freedom. So ultimately, you're saying that this slave or master mentality and system is still in existence, just in a different way.
Exactly. What we suffer from, a lot of it is what I call PMS. PMS is post-mental slavery. You know,
I hear that.
You know, PMS. You know, we suffer from PMS because I got this concept where I'm going to have people buy manumission papers. We have to buy ourselves back. And you know, manumission papers is what the slave owners gave the slave. They were free because they couldn't read. And we need to give these people, give everyone, man, you have a right to be free. We haven't accepted that yet. So post-mental slavery is a psychological condition where we don't see ourselves as free. We still think, a lot of us, like a commodity. So until you're free, you become an entrepreneur rather than a thing, rather just a thing. A property, a chattel slavery. You know, a lot of us still think of it as just to be so bought and sold, post-mental slavery. Very subconscious, but it's there. And by having a manumission paper, you can buy your freedom. Now you're free to become an entrepreneur. This is the greatest capitalist country in the world, and we were the greatest property in the world that made it a great country.
Absolutely.
So the only way we can undo that, we have to start thinking like capitalists. By freeing ourselves and using our own mind, our intellect. Hell, like I say, we got the mind of Malcolm, the heart of Ali, and the spirit of Martin Luther King. Those are my heroes. The mind of Malcolm, the heart of Ali, and the spirit of Martin Luther King. If we know that, we can do better. We can.
I hear you. I agree with you. But I do have to ask you this question based on just the concept of black capitalism, right? And this is an unbiased question, meaning I'm not saying I'm disagreeing or agreeing for that matter. I just have to ask you this because there's a group of people. I know Yvette Carnell is one of them that thinks the idea of black capitalism is ludicrous. She does based on two factions. One, we don't have generational wealth, and two, something you said earlier made me think about this. The talented 10th. So that was black capitalism, wasn't it? So
yes,
now do you think if go ahead.
Well, that was. You remember when they bombed Oklahoma, the city in Oklahoma?
Yes, Tulsa.
You know, they start. Right, exactly. That was a capitalist city. There was a viable city. I know we don't have generational wealth, and I know we don't pass things out to our children, but the two things can change that, and it always has. One is education. And
Absolutely.
two is to think like a capitalist. I don't care if you got to spend a time. Somebody going to tell me that all over America you got these Korean merchants are coming in the ghetto. They work 7 days a week. I know some of them. Friends, and some of them, they work 7 days a week. It's family there to build a capitalist wealth in the hood. You know, maybe some people don't want to see liquor stores there and here, there. And I understand that I don't even drink. I'm a teetotaler. But the bottom line is that capitalism is a mental construct first. You have to see yourself as a capitalist, not as a social. I have this little parable. I said all the living are capitalists, and all the socialists all the dead are socialists. You know.
I hear that. That's deep.
in all the data sources. I mean, look what China's doing today. Look what China's doing. They're the second most powerful country in the world now. They have the second number of billionaires next to America. How did it happen? And because everything you get in Walmart is made in China. Now, China has done the terrible things. I'm using expression. They've pimped 40 million of their peasants to get there. They really have. They, working slave labor hours in shops and licking apple and all this stuff. But the bottom line now, they are a capitalist country with a communist face.
So now, but see, I think that's my question there. So if black people as a whole collectively adopt this capitalistic mindset, which, extreme capitalism is the slave years, right? It's free labor to make, but moderate capitalism is just working hard, building. Well, not necessarily just working hard, but building your own business and wealth, which is supposedly what the American dream was made of. How can we be sure that another W.E.B. Du Bois type person, or even a Edward McCabe, who helped Oklahoma become a thriving economic black community, and people like this don't yet again ostracize those blacks who are low middle class and poor? Because remember, when they were calling for black people to come to Oklahoma, whether it was Tulsa or Boley or wherever, they were calling for black people who already had money. And if you did not have money, they did not want you in the town.
Exactly. Exactly.
So now there are people who, I mean, even though he's a fictitious character, we could think about George Jefferson, who started poor, worked his way up to own several chains. So they're totally disregarding that faction of black people when they say, if you don't have money or anything, don't come here. How do we know that's not going to happen again?
That's a good question. There's a thing that the Koreans do who don't have money. It's called a key. And what the key is that 10 Koreans will get together, and each one will put $10,000 in the key. $10,000. And then they have $100,000, and one person takes $100,000 to open a business. That's how they do it. And it works. And many, when they had the riots out here, most of the merchants lost their money were Koreans because of the big riots, Rodney King. But the point is that they pulled their resources. We used to do that. We were better off way before, yourself in the 40s and the 30s, when we had to help one another because of segregation. We had to lean on each other, and we did it. People with 10 brothers would get together, 7. Man, I got $500. I got 5, and we start a business. There's no rocket scientist in doing a business. It takes time, energy, and incredibly sacrifice. Because you have to put in 60 hours a week, mainly when you get started. It's just a cold fact. And I think that oftentimes a guy, what's his name, that great writer, he said something to when blacks were slaves for 400 years, a long time, when they finally got free, the first word that they said was no. First word they said was no. Because all the words you always say, yes, master, yes, master. So they said no. And a lot of them became this homeless outside the street, walking around, itinerant, but they said no, they were free. The first thing slaves did when they were free, they moved around. They moved around. And they did it for 50, 75, to find who they were. They didn't know who they were. We were the ultimate lost and found. We were the ultimate lost, because Jews always had their religion. We had nothing. We lost our color to miscegenation. We lost our name of our gods. We lost everything. Well, we were the lost and found.
I can't say that the Jewish people always had their religion. That's something different, because on personal belief, I believe that the so-called African Americans and the quote-unquote black indigenous people are the sons and daughters of the descendants of the sons and daughters of Israel. But that's a different story. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I understand that story too. Yes, and but my point is that the slavery is not the worst thing you could do to someone. The worst thing you could do to someone is to make them not know who they are. Like Ralph Ellison's book, Invisible Man. You see, the thing is, the thing is, Lamont, is that the first law is self-preservation. The first law of life. That is totally fallacious. The first law of life is sanity, to make sense of life, of your life. And when people kill themselves every day because they lose their sanity, and they got money. So what we try to do is to reclaim our sanity, not self-preservation, but sanity. Because of slavery, Willie did us. Think about it. There was slavery all over the continents. But why did blues happen in America? What was so unique about the peculiar slavery in America and the South that made it produce this profound music? They took our identity away from us. They took the miscegenation to everything. We were truly, in a way, like you said, lost and found. You know, you can say a tribe, you can say whatever, but we were the lost and found, and still are in a way. But the bottom line is that we didn't know who we were. You know, I mean, think about it. We the only people, the only race of people in the world that run from as black as Miles Davis to as white as Adam Clayton Powell. Think about it. What other race has a color range from white to black? There's no people. Yeah, you can go to Brazil, see them mixed up, but we the only in America, from Adam Clayton Powell, who could pass for white, to the great genius Miles Davis, who is black. We the only, and everything in between. And we still trying to we still trying to learn how to love all of ourselves. You know that. That's true. You go to families, you go into a family, a couple of them lighter, well, you black in, you know what I'm saying? They talk about you just, you know what I mean? You know how it happens in family. Yeah, colorism. You got to, colorism. You see it all the time in the black family. Oh, I don't like this and he's too dark. Why like you too light? You know, we the only race. I call us the new Americans. The new Americans. You know, because ultimately, Barack Obama is proof of it. You know, I mean, his mother's white, his father was African. So in a way, he really was an African American. You know what I'm saying? He was exactly. Because his father was Kenyan. And my point is that we still trying to learn to love all of our parts, Lamont. Because I say 500 years from now, Americans will look like us. When all this madness is gone, when the Trump fallacy is gone, 500 years from now, the new Americans will look like us. Because the average person under 30 years, the average white person under 30 years old who are dating somebody out of it, they don't care. It's the old parts who still prejudiced, old white 60 and 70. But the young ones, they don't. I know so many young people under 30, they don't care what you are. They date people black, white, they don't care. They got mixed marriages. We the new race. That is true. But let me ask you this. Based on the younger people who are not, whatever the reason is, but not caring about skin color or racial identity. I mean, for that matter, they don't care about any identity, which is kind of problematic in itself. But That's true. Do you believe that mind state also perpetuates what we're seeing now? Because not identifying with any type of racial implications or anything allows people to have the illusion that racism does not exist anymore. Right, I agree. But see, and we cannot forget that, again, that we are the blues people. We have an identity. We come from the blues. And our language, our vernacular language is Ebonics. We are the blues. I don't care how light you get or how dark you are blues people in America. You know, and that's in a way, is our religion, because the whole church, Doris, what's his name, Dorsey, who wrote Precious Lord. You know, he was. Right. He played for. He was a piano player. His name was Georgia Bob, and he played for Ma Rainey. You know that? Yes, I do, sir. He was. Yeah, he was a blues man. And he brought the blues into the church with Precious Lord and all those songs. So we have to stop being ashamed of our legacy. If I'm in a white group, I don't care what it is. How many? There can be people mixed marriage with. I'm a blues person. I say, okay, you come from the blues. That's our identity. It's pre-Christianity. It's all of these things. And the bottom line is that we should never forget that, because you can get in a dominant white group. And especially if you're upper class or this or that or professor university, it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget who you are. And sometimes you wanted to forget. I've seen that in grad school. I've seen it. People talk very proper in a certain way. When I was lecturing there, I did lecture at San Diego, University of California, San Diego, and they see it and they asked me, I said, well, look, yeah, I'd be educated only because my mother had no education. I got an education for her. But the bottom line, I'm a blues man. I'm a blues man, but that's who I identify with. In that way, I'm in a crowd with Scotsmen or Irishmen or Germans and Russians or whatever, and they say, what are you? I say, I'm a blues man. I even put in my passport, blues man.
I hear that.
That's my job, and I'm proud of it.
There's a culture.
And with the it's a culture that's what August Wilson taught me. August Wilson was not ashamed of vernacular text. You see his plays. I know if you've seen them. It's incredible because that's us. And guess what? 90% of people seeing his plays are white people. I know they're expensive, but 90% when I go to see his plays, mostly white people. And he talks about some bad stuff. You know that, especially Ma Rainey Black Bottom. He talks about some bad stuff. But white people love to see that because it's the truth. It's our culture. It's our literature. As he says, all of my literature comes from the blues, August Wilson. So I'm proud of that. Any group I'm in, that's what I am. That's what I am. I'm a blues person. Black
well,
blues
let me ask you, based on, since we're talking about August Wilson, because I agree with you, so I don't have to go into my personal thoughts, because everything you say in terms of who he was and what his writing was, I agree with. But I do want to speak about his most recent play that's been put into a movie that starred Denzel Washington and Viola Davis, right?
Yeah, Fences.
Now, yes, Fences, because that's just a 2-hour blues song. You and I know that.
Yeah,
now,
you're right.
With that being said, on Facebook, I saw so many so-called, and I call it so-called because blues people instead of saying African Americans. I saw so many blues people saying how they were just disgusted. Some people was like, "Yo, the energy was so bad, I just had to walk out." Why are we still living like this? Why are we still talking about this? Are we looking at a generation of blues people that don't want to identify with the truth of our existence in America and trying to identify with the truth of the younger liberal white people who just think none of this stuff exists, or at least they preach none of this stuff exists?
Mm-hmm. Sadly, they walk out because, again, August shows the bare truth. I think the play took place in the 40s. He did each play was a decade. And you mentioned Jackie Robinson. And it's some ugly stuff he shows in all of his plays. But that's where we come from. As I said, and people forget this, most struggles, the Jewish struggle, the Irish struggle from the independence of England, the black struggle, comes to some dark stuff. And you cannot forget that. You cannot. That's your legacy because you're alive because you went through it. You're alive. You're not a wiped out tribe like many of the tribes are wiped out in America. The Last of the Mohegans, they're going to make a movie called The Last of the Mohegans. They wiped them out. So we're not wiped out. And August Wilson just reminds us this is what we come. It wasn't for Jackie Robinson, when that play talks about it, you wouldn't have all of the great black stars today. You know that. All of they've gone on forever. There was a time when blacks couldn't play basketball and stuff. So my point is that they walk out because they want to play the music, the so-called blues people. I say the truth. You cannot play blues unless you speak and know through empathy or the real thing that you've experienced. As Bob Dylan said, won a Nobel Prize for literature, not for his nice songs, but for the songs he talked about bad stuff, like the boxer,
right.
And Blowing the Wind. He got a Nobel Prize for that, talking about some real issues. Real issues. Right. What they gonna do? Not listen to Bob Dylan? But they're gonna judge us, especially these blues people, and say, "Oh, I'm gonna see them walk out." That's your reality. I demand when I teach blues, I give them a list of 5 books they must read. They must read. I tell them about slavery. I talk about Jim Crow. I talk about constant raping. From the slave ship. We were on the slave ships in Africa. There were constant rape started there. Babies were born when they got to the shores of America. So we became Americans on the slave ships before we became America. So
true.
This is real. I'm not angry. I'm not disgruntled. I'm not mad at white people. But this is real. I saw a sign in San Diego that said, "Not black, not white, just blues." That's what it said. It had T-shirts for Blues Festival. Not black, not white, just blues. What in the hell is that? That's like me going to classical music.
That's misinformation.
It's totally, but they're trying to whitewash it, and they're trying to wash the dark out of it, the bad part. I love classical music. Hell, I studied classical piano. Beethoven was my first inspiration. I still love Beethoven. I listen to classical music every day. And you're going to tell me classical music is not white, not black, just classical music? That's bull.
Of course, but see, that's the issue I have. That will never be said.
No,
but when it comes to the blues, it will be said.
Because the blues police, what I call them, the blues police have usurped the blues. 85 to 90% of all the festivals in America controlled by white people who don't even know anybody black. They live in a middle-class community. They don't know. How you going to book somebody black? You don't even know anybody black. I know. I saw the Ventura Blues Festival out here in California. Ventura is an upper-class county, and they had Johnny Rivers, Secret Agent Man, nice song, but it wasn't blues. Secret Agent Man, Johnny Rivers, 30 years ago, was headlining the festival, a blues festival. You know, Steven Seagal, the actor, he thinks he can sing the blues. He headlined a blues festival in France called the Passion Festival. I know, I played it. Put my hands in the concrete. Yes, Steven Seagal headlined the blues festival in France. Can you believe that, Lamar? This is the way it is because they want to fill seats. They want to fill seats, and the bad thing is that most people go to the festivals are white people, not black, because in the black community, the young people listen to hip-hop, old people are dead or dying, and they don't listen to it, or they don't have the money to go. So they cater to whoever had a hit. You know what? Blues festivals has come to dying ground for old rockers. Old rock stars who had a hit 20 years ago, they'll bogart their way into a blues festival headlining because they had a rock hit 20 years ago. They go there to get. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. You know, and the blues police, they help control it because they, you know, some of them say, "Oh, Mighty's music is great, but he's so political. He gonna come in and one time I wore a noose around my neck, a slave noose.
Wow!
You know, come out the stage. I came on the stage with a slave noose around my neck to show them this is where it comes from, and they all was shocked, you know. But I did some great music, and all of my songs not protest. You know, maybe 40%, but I talk about good times and stuff. But the bottom line is that, like you said about the brothers walking out of August Wilson play, they don't want to know about this. But this is what we stand on. We stand on the shoulders of giants whose survival gave us our freedom. And now we're going to run away from who we are. You know, how dare us do that? You know, we destroy ourselves when we deny who we are. You know, because I get more respect in Europe where I'm playing all over. You know, I'm Switzerland, going to Africa next year. I got a record I did with a Mali, and I'll send it to you, called Griot Blues, Eastern Mali, Africa. And it's blowing all the way up. And when they text me your address, I'll send it to you. It's really great. It's blowing up in Europe, and it'll be out here, and it's called Griot Blues, where blues goes back to Africa.
Absolutely. It absolutely does, especially in that region. Let me ask you something as we come to a close, because we got to get you back on. Matter of fact, I want to set up a show with you and Ronnie Stewart. That will be beautiful.
That'd be great. Sure.
What I want to ask you is, based on everything we just discussed and all the information you shared, would you say one of the most, basic foundations of the blues is self-discovery, because the blues really took flight after the emancipation during Reconstruction? So would you say that the blues is a self-discovery or rediscovery of who we are as people collectively?
Well, blues called us. You got to understand that blues was born out of what I call an existential vacuum. There were black codes in Mississippi, Alabama that forbid black people from having drums. You got to understand that all in South America and Caribbean, you notice they always got drums, polyrhythms.
Right.
You know, because they didn't take the drum away. Only in America did they take the drum from the African. And if you look at Africa, there are 12 countries in Africa that have drums on their stamp.
That's right.
Because the drum is more than just a symbol of playing. It's a portal to another world. So by taking the drum from the African in America, they de-Africanized the African. And in that vacuum, in that existential vacuum, this void came the blues. Blues was conjured up, given to us to remind us of who we were, who we are. See, we didn't know. We were the lost and found. Blues came from Mississippi and Alabama. The worst state has produced the greatest music. The worst racially, the worst, sexually, the worst violently, the worst, yet the most religious, produced this profound sound. That's not by chance. It came up through the soil, to the blood, to the mud, to the Mississippi, to remind us of who we were as the blues people. That's why I call it the Holy Howl. It is pre-language. It is from the Middle Passage when we were crossing and we didn't know we're throwing off the slave ships and dying there. And it's reminding us, there's a voice that says, remember me, remember me. I have no name, but remember me. And that's where blues comes from. It's to remind us of who we are as Americans of African descent. And it won't go away. It won't go. It haunts us. I was seeing my record that I talk about. It haunts us. It challenges us. It helps to define us, and yet it pushes us forward. And it made America's music. The whole foundation of American music comes from us. Comes from us. Like I said, with no blues, no Elvis, no Beatles, no they know that. John Lennon was proud of the fact all of his heroes were black. Matter of fact, the English learned the blues so well, they brought it back and gave it to white Americans. White Americans didn't know who Howlin' Wolf was. That's a fact. You know, the Rolling Stones loved Howlin' Wolf. They invited him on a TV show, and the guy didn't even know who Howlin' Wolf was. He said, we want Howlin' Wolf to open for us. All the heroes were black. And they gave it back to white America. Some of us knew, but white Americans didn't know, but the English loved them. They created the blues trails in Mississippi. They didn't care about that until Eric Clapton and all these guys went out and said, I want to see where Robert Johnson's buried at. And the guy was saying, why you want to know about that nigga? Now it's $1 million industry.
Yeah. That none of these black people are getting paid off of.
Some of them are, but not a lot. And the politicians are. It's a business now. It's a hustle. Again, it's been commodified. Blues has been commodified. House of blues, they put it in a house. You're going to put blues in a house. You know, it's been commodified. But the bottom line is that you can't buy blues. You only can buy the blues. And it reinvents itself. It is who we are. We have to claim it and not shame it.
Man, powerful. That's all I can say is powerful. I have to thank you for being on the show. We have to.
Thank you.
I would like to schedule a show in the next couple of weeks with you and Ronnie Stewart and to speak more in depth about this festival thing in regards to the lack of representation of the blues people and all this kind of stuff. Please, when I get off the air, I will give you my information so I can get some of that music and play it.
Right. Okay. Thanks for having me on. Love your show. Love what you're doing. Keep up the good work, Lamont, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.